like to, I felt like the cowboy poets of yore, you know, they wrote what they knew, so I like to write stuff that kind of happened to me, and this one here is mostly true. It's called How's the Horse? My wife, she do love me. She tells me with words, she'll show me with actions, she'll even send it in Morse. But there are times when I have to begin to doubt, like when she said, how's the horse? Now, here's a story that needs some explaining, but if you listen, I think that you'll see how a silly little simple question like that nearly came between my wife and me. I was told, you see, to take some vacation because they said I'd been showing some stress, and a few days off was all that was needed to keep me from making a mess. And on the first day off of loafing and lazing about away from the rat race and grind, I told my wife I'd do all the chores instead of just helping for the sweet little wifey of mine. I took some hay for the sheep and some grain for the goats, and I was taking it slow, though I could have gone faster. And I saved up the best part of the chores for last, and that's leading the horses to pasture. I first led my wife's and then my daughter's mare and went back for my big, beautiful bay. And the path to that place, it was a bit twisty with fences and gates on the way. And not a care in the world, I climbed up on her bare back and around her neck threw a piece of twine, and then held on for dear life when I opened the gate and felt that old mare start to unwind. You see, she'd been born and bred and raised for racing, but I'd always just rode her for fun. So I wasn't in the least little bit prepared when she took off like a shot from a gun. I was screaming and flating with legs all akimbo, and I made it through turn number 1, but I knew I was doomed after turn number 2 because the worst turn was yet to come. You see, it's a 90-degree turn to get to the gate, and it's a gate that we made solid and true, and I knew she'd go from 60 to naught and throw me head first right on through. So a calculated risk I decided to take. I'd jump off and land in the dirt. And I picked a spot that looked kind of soft and figured I wouldn't get hurt. And I left off that horse while she's in mid-stride and landed just like I knew I should. A perfect number 11 I made, and then I heard something snap like dry wood. I collapsed, cussing, clutching my leg, and everything kind of faded to black. And I don't know how long I laid there, sprawled out flat on my back. And then, broken and bleeding, I crawled to the house, and I clawed my way up to the phone to call on my wife who'd gone off and left me there all alone. And when she answered, I told her my story, and I left in every detail. I even admitted that I was a fool with a plan that was destined to fail. And she was all choked up when I let her reply, her voice just filled with remorse. That's when she said what she wanted to know, and she asked, how's the horse? Well, I must have been hurt more than I thought, because my jaw fell right to the floor. And she tells me later she tried to explain, but my ears didn't work anymore. And the phone, it tumbled from fingers gone numb, and I dragged myself out the house to go and search for that herd sour cantankerous mare to say problems fix me in the spout. And there she was, you know, just waiting and patient, standing right next to the fence. So I turned her on out and went back to the house. I was certain I'd never walk normal again. I somehow managed to make it inside, but I stopped and took my boots off on the porch. I put them back on, screaming in pain because I didn't want to drip blood across the floor. Everything's hazy from that point on out, as often it is in disaster. And when I awoke, my leg was encased in about $10,000 of plaster. I'm mostly patched up now. I'm walking just fine. But when we engage in discourse, if ever she says something I don't want to hear, I simply ask her, how's the horse?